All right, so we are recording again. My name is Luke Angstadt. This is my podcast, Knowledge Wars. I have two guests with me. I have Bob and Albert. Both these guys are in North Carolina. And the last time, about a week ago, it was just Albert and I on a call, and we had a very interesting conversation as it pertains to biblical prophecy, the Book of Revelation, and actually Genesis as well. And just to give a very brief recap, we were talking about some really heady topics with dealing with the singularity that a lot of scientists, a lot of artificial intelligence experts are predicting that we are moving into a technological singularity where artificial intelligence will reach a point of advancement where every 5 seconds it's going to be making discoveries that would have hitherto taken human beings decades to accomplish. I mean, things as profound as coming up. I mean, Newton's theory of gravity, Einstein's theory of relativity, just pasteurization, just, I mean, you name it. But I mean, the fact of the matter is it's going to be coming up with it's going to be making discoveries, every 5 seconds, because it will so far exceed human intelligence that it will be, so just beyond us, beyond words. And so they're talking about this singularity, but then we kind of got back into the Bible, and we were talking about how the Bible is describing, the singularity, moving from a singularity of darkness and the void without form in the book of Genesis into this world of duality with good and evil and light and darkness and the world of opposites, that our world is composed of opposites, and how in the book of Revelation it predicts that we will be moving from this world of duality back into a singularity of light. And the Bible is very clear in its terminology. In the last chapter 22 of Revelation, the first 5 verses describe this moving into this singularity of light. And while we were having this conversation with Albert had a wonderful insight, and when he brought to my attention that, hey, when a close reading of the book of Revelation shows us that after the millennial reign, and I'm getting off on a lot of different subjects here, but after the millennial reign will come first, where the second coming of Christ will come, and then he will reign for 1,000 years. And then after those 1,000 years, the devil will be unleashed from his pit for a brief season, and that is open to interpretation for how long that season is going to be. But there will be a season. It's very clear in the book of Revelation, in particular, I believe, chapter 20, verse 7, where it says that the devil will be unleashed after the millennial reign. And I know I'm touching on a lot of subjects here, trying to wrap it up, and I hope I didn't lose too many people in our audience once they turn this on. But to the segue that I was discussing with Albert and Bob before we started recording is that Albert made an amazing insight among so many, as are Bob's as well. But this one in particular, I said this would make a great segue into the next conversation once we get Bob on the call, because before the last one was just Albert and I. But to the point, if we are living during this season, the devil's season, where he is allowed to let loose on the world. I mean, if you play a word association game, what's the first when I think of the devil, I think of deception. I think of universal deceit. I mean, when I think of evil too, the first thing I think of is deceit, is obviously smoke and mirrors and underhandedness, and it's never out in the open. But I think what better is there a better description, or what better encapsulates what we are all experiencing right now on spaceship Earth, other than universal deception? Because that's what we see at every turn, and we can't stay on top of it, because it's just an avalanche of deceit, every day, 24/7. And where does that leave us? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when you say deceit, I mean, I guess it all depends on what version of the Bible you're reading. But in the version that I read, it actually says the devil will be let loose for a short time to deceive the nations once again.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the word deceive, and so I mean, yeah, and we're being, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Without a doubt.
I come back, you judge a tree by its fruits, and obviously you can judge the devil by his fruits, and everything. I mean, it's like, and you get to a point where I just don't know where to start. It's like kind of like with, I know I was touching on a lot of subjects in the opening, because you just don't know where to start, because overwhelmed by it all. And I mean, I think we all find ourselves in a similar situation where we've been trying to talk to people for most of our lives. I mean, and I know Albert has, and that's kind of what mutually brought Albert and I together. And that's what, when Bob thought of Albert to introduce him to me, is that we felt it since we were young children, that something was off, that something is profoundly off in this world. And we've been trying to have there's some variation of this conversation with people our entire lives, but they will not hear us, right? And that's just like the double stamp of deceit on top of everything else, is that on top of the universal deceit, people's response is just blanket denial to it, right? I mean, that is the cherry on top. That is the rotten cherry on top. So how do we cope with this, guys? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I go through so many different stages of grief where, shock, disbelief, resignation, indignation, and then I'm just back to, resignation again. But how do you guys deal with this? Because I know we live in a world of universal deceit, whether it's in line with biblical prophecy, which I believe it is as well, or if it's just something else entirely. I mean, it's indisputable for anybody who's half awake that we live in a world of universal deception.
Well, some people, the amazing thing is, you try to have a conversation with them, or I have, and they believe what you're saying, but then don't want to hear it just because it's upsetting their worldview, or then they'll think they have to do something, but they just rather not know. They rather, like, they pick their head up out of the sand to tell me,
Yeah.
hey, watch it, and then they stick their head back in the sand.
Yeah, I get that too. It's like, you get the confirmation and boom, back in the sand. Yeah.
Like, but guys, wait a minute. We got work to do here.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I don't get it.
And I try and do baby steps with. Oh, go ahead, Albert. Please, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's just part of that bit of having faith and gathering as much knowledge as possible. So when people do wake up, you're able to steer them in the right direction. At least that's what I do.
Yeah, for me, not that I'm saying I have given up on waking people up, but I believe that, like, when we've touched on this before, people are waking up, and it's not because we're telling them, it's because they're seeing it, right? Like, there's too much evidence out there that, as much as they don't want to see it, go back to some real, and I'm a simple guy, right? Like, I'm nowhere near as deep as you guys, but go back to something simple. Your wife's cheating on you, right? You've been with her for 30 years, and someone says, hey man, I think your wife's got, she's screwing your buddy or something like that. Your first reaction is going to be like denial. There's no way. Mm-hmm. And you'll deny it for a long time, but then you're going to start to, like, notice little things, and you'll scratch your head and you'll be like, wait a second, that didn't make any sense. She said this, but I saw this, and then you'll forget it again. But eventually but it's painful. So eventually you're going to realize, like, damn it, they were right. My wife is screwing my buddy, and you're going to be pissed and go through all those emotions. But until you experience it for yourself, somebody telling you this is what's going on is never going to work. And I felt, at the very beginning of this stuff, I felt responsibility, in a sense, like, if I could wake people up, we could band together and we wouldn't be here today, right? But obviously, it didn't work, and then it's not going to work. And so now we're at the point where, and we are in an awakening, you know what I mean? And let's touch it real quick on the Georgia Guidestones from yesterday. So many people never knew so I can't believe how many people that I sent information to yesterday that said, I've never heard of those. What is that? People from Georgia, for crying out loud. A friend of mine from Georgia said, what was that? A memorial, a monument that somebody blew up? Like, I'm like, no. And so then they learn, what is that? Oh my gosh, I never knew that existed. What's that about? And I don't tell them what. I said, look into it yourself, what that's about. And so I just think that there's things happening so much. We're getting hammered with all this, real information that people are beginning to see. For instance, my daughter, just with the Georgia Guidestone, she said, what is that? And I explained to her briefly what it states. And she said, what is that, a cult or something? I said, no, it's not a cult. I said, it is a cult, I suppose, but it's the global elites trying to control the world. And this is their plan. And she looked at me like I was crazy, but I let it go because I don't have to take it any further, because this thing is going to play itself out in real time. And,
Yeah.
and there's only so much you can deny.
And I think people are feeling it. They're feeling it more than even see. I mean, they see the details, but they feel themselves being being pushed back into a corner, and how that corner is getting smaller and smaller. They obviously they feel it in their pocketbook, right? I mean, they feel it in the price of gas, the food uncertainty, and they feel it, right? I mean, it's close. This battle, this war is gradually and maybe even more rapidly being brought to people's doorsteps. And we were talking about, Bob, we talked about this in many conversations before, and Albert, we probably touched on it too, is that the struggle has to be brought to people's doorsteps before they move, before they take action, right? Before they even consider taking action. Yeah.
Before they wake up.
Yeah. And then what I've been trying to impress on people, especially since March of 2020, is that there comes a point where you just have to take Nancy Reagan's words and you just say no, right? There comes a point where you know what's happening is wrong. You know you're being manipulated. You know somebody is. You can feel it, that the powers that be are trying to enslave you and doing everything they can to control you. And you just have to say no when you know something is wrong. It's like, this doesn't feel right. I know they may not know all the details of why it's wrong, but you just know it in your bones at a cellular level that you are being coerced to do something that is wrong, and you feel it. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, and you just say no. Enough is enough. And if enough people make that personal decision to say no, that they're not going to take it anymore, that they will not be degraded anymore, that's when you see the global shift. That's when you see the global shift in consciousness as well, and that can happen instantaneously.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was texting a buddy yesterday, and he said, like in regards to this, and he said, well, when you have a plan, let me know. And I said, just resist. That's the plan. I mean, resist. And if enough people resist, not that that's going to, solve the problem, but that's going to take us to the next place. What does that look like after everybody resists? What's the next step look like? And we don't know, because we haven't done that yet, right? So is it revolution? I don't know. I have no idea what it is. But like everything else that we do in life, you have to take that first step to see what the next result's going to be. So either you sit here and you take it and give up, or you fight. And it's nature that Americans don't really understand that, we're a spoiled population, always have been, right? Ever since, our generation, and we're born into this culture that hands you basically everything, and you have to put forth effort, yes, but compared to the rest of the world, the effort is pretty minimal, right? Like freaking scratch your head, study a little bit, take a little, just get up and move, and you're going to do okay in this country. And so when the rug gets pulled out from under that, nobody understands that, anything worthwhile, it needs to be fought for, blood, like all that. It's just the law of the universe. Like nothing worth having comes easy. And so, but I don't think that most Americans get that, that's all. And so they're going to sit back and take it until they really see that, wow, we are in a dilemma here, and we better do something before it's too late. And I don't think it's too late. Sometimes I do, but I really don't. When I see crazy things happening and I talk to different people, and I don't think it's too late, but we need to act for sure.
Yeah. It felt like, sometimes it feels like it might be too late, but then, things like Roe versus Wade gets overturned, and, start to feel like the country's turning back towards God. So it feels good, but there's a heck of a whole lot more to do.
And I think this is to Albert's point earlier in our conversation just here today, is that, people, they're willing to acknowledge that, there's manipulation, there's corruption. I mean, but we see what's happening. They can read the writing on the wall, and they do realize that the government does not have their best interest in mind, to say the least. That the government could very well be, it is the problem, but they just, after they see that, they acknowledge it, they give a brief head shake, and then they stick their head back in the sand. But because it is too much for people right now, right? For the vast majority of people, it's too much to admit to themselves that pretty much the entire history of the world is the story of the manipulation of perception. It's the story of the powers that be, whoever holds the reins to the existing power structure, and primarily government, and also organized religion. they have been doing everything they can to control and enslave the rest of the people. And that really is the history of the world in a nutshell. And that's just, people know it, they kind of get it, like, yeah, I can see that, but they don't want to fully acknowledge it. And until they do, this is going to keep happening, and people underestimate that it takes a moment's illumination. If enough people on a personal level have a moment's illumination and a moment of resolve where they say, okay, we're not going to take it anymore. I just say no to this evil, to evil itself. That you can that can be transformational instantaneously on the planet, where the global consciousnss can be raised in a moment. It really does work that way, and that's what I've been trying to impress upon people my entire life.
But it is very difficult to cross that line. But once you do, everything. What was it? You probably know, Albert, or maybe you do, that movie. I never saw it. I just see little clips where, somebody puts on these glasses and they see what it really is. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Or They Live. They Live, 1988.
Older
John
movie,
Carpenter.
right? A little bit older.
They Live. The movie is called They Live, with what, Roddy Piper. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
John Carpenter made it. Yep.
But once you begin, once you put on those glasses, I mean, you can't see it any other way. But
Yeah, you see it everywhere. Yeah.
But the person that you're talking to, they haven't put on the glasses, so to speak. And it's almost, I had a conversation this weekend with a friend of my daughter's, 4th of July, and a police officer and a patriot, and still believes that the government has our bet. We've done bad things, but it's all for the greater good for us as Americans. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, you really think our government are good? And she does, 100%. So, you really can't make much progress with someone like that until they realize. So one of my questions was, so you think 9/11, and this young lady, she's young, she's 24 years old. So I was shocked. I said, you really think 9/11 happened like they said? She goes, oh, 100%. So, like, you're not making progress with something like that. They have to come to terms like nothing is what it appears. I saw this yesterday, so I'm just going to read it. It's very brief, but it shows a picture of military people, and it says, American soldiers, and it says 900 bases in 153 countries. That's not fighting for your freedom. That's building an empire.
Yeah.
And but the average American, and I was one of them a long time ago, thinks we're helping other countries. We're spreading democracy. We're here for them. And actually, I told her a brief story that I know a guy from Iran who grew up in Iran. He's a 40-year-old guy right now, one of, a guy that I know at a restaurant. And he said when he was a kid, Operation Ajax, which I never looked it up, the Americans came into Iran and basically did what they wanted to do, right? Nobody knew about it. And when I told her this, she said, well, one day he'll realize we were there to help them. Like, that's how bizarre people
That's how brainwashed they are.
I'm like, this guy lived there. He was a child. He had family. He witnessed it. And your arrogance as a 24-year-old American, you're going to say one day that Iranian guy is going to realize we were there to help them. Come on, but you can't argue. But so
you can't, because that's how deeply ingrained the brainwashing is. It's
That's exactly right. The brainwashing. It's difficult to get through.
And it really is. And it's like, what do you? I mean, I just don't know. From like a day to day, from like, you think about a tactical plan each day, a practical tactical plan for reaching people. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it'll take. Who knows? I mean, at this point, I don't know. Yeah, part of me just wants to let it run its course and get the revolution over with, so we can, start fresh.
What do you guys think about the guidestones? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Like,
they were clearly satanic. I mean, they were satanic. Yeah.
No. I mean, what happened yesterday? Like after you have a little time to process it, and you hear what people are saying about it. Initially, what somebody blew it up, right? Somebody, a couple people, as whatever. And then as you look into it a little bit more, so like, once again, like everything else, the initial story really doesn't add up. Because
No.
if they had surveillance camera on the guide stones and saw it blow up, well, why didn't they see somebody planting explosives over there, which they did not, right? And
Mhm.
so you see it blow up, but yet you don't see anything else, but yet they're telling you that's what happened. So
Mhm.
you begin to, once again, like everything else, you begin to question what is the real story.
Mhm.
And let alone 6 hours later, they got heavy equipment out there tearing the whole freaking thing down. Like,
Right.
like it really works that fast? Like
Yeah,
nothing
right, right.
works that fast.
Mhm.
So it's odd. That's all. And I don't know what
It's the
the
same way
answer
the
is.
United, yeah. It's the same way the United States government didn't have a shred of intelligence on this vast global terrorist network on September 10th of
Yeah.
2001, but the next day they had the entire web of the terrorist network, mapped out with Osama bin Laden and the mastermind and all the 19 everything. I mean, they had everything else within a day, or maybe even before the end of the day, but prior to that, they knew absolutely nothing. And the reason they do is because this globalist new world order, I mean, the Illuminati, the secret societies that run this, the people, the George Soros, the Bill Gates of the world, the Klaus Schwabs, the deep state, Henry Kissinger, all of the people that run this world, they control both sides. And it's the same thing with Roe v. Wade. I mean, I look at the timing of Roe v. Wade, and all Roe v. Wade does is it allows the states to decide. It makes the question of abortion a state issue. But I mean, look how that has been just grossly and bastardly misrepresented. And I think the whole reason that they dropped that is to stoke the fires of public dissent, of public discontent, because they're trying to incite the civil war in this country right now. And I think that's the only reason they did it. The same reason why as monkeypox took a back seat. But what do we have? I mean, within a matter of days, we had the Roe v. Wade was passed a couple of days after these new gun red flag laws. And there was something else I was missing that happened a few days after that. But it just in close succession, we're having these.
There's a lot of shootings.
Yeah, the shootings. That's right, the shootings. So it was the shootings, and then the red flag gun laws, and then Roe v. Wade is overturned within a matter of within like the span of a week. And again, it gets to be too much, but it's because the New World Order controls both sides here. They're just, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, go ahead, Albert.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I'm trying to formulate a thought.
I was going to say, sometimes I get the feeling that we have them on their toes. You know what I mean? Like they're like it's not working. Let's say that much. People are waking up, and we don't really have to have a plan.
Mhm.
I mean, as humanity, like I said at the beginning, all we have to do is resist, because there's too many flipping people in the world.
Mhm.
And it's like we've talked about this before. Even if we all said we're all going to break the law, and legitimately we're breaking the law, everybody, whatever, this is I'm just making an example. Well, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like if everybody was saying we're not paying freaking taxes, it doesn't matter anymore.
Mhm.
But everybody's afraid to be the first. But like you always say, Luke, when it goes, it's going to go.
Mhm.
And what that looks like, I don't know, but there's too many people to be controlled. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. I mean, deep down inside, people know whatever they're taught and brainwashed to thinking is we are born free, and we are supposed to be free. It's in our being. That's how God made us. We're not supposed to be controlled and manipulated and told what to do. And everybody instinctively knows that's wrong.
Mhm.
And I think they allow it to, it's almost like a give and take. Well, I'll do this because I get this, right? Whatever. But when it comes to the point, like, what am I getting and what are they doing to me, is when people say it's enough. And it's happening all over the world, more so than it's happening in this country, because I believe they're not as spoiled as we are. They see it. They know what's happening. And we're just kind of like, it'll be okay. Like, we're still in denial in this country, and we think this is America, and things don't happen to us. That happens everywhere else. And that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but if you spend some time speaking to some immigrants, people that have come here from other countries, especially ones that had socialist regimes or communist regimes, it's really evident to them what's happening, and they don't understand how others don't see it,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
which is kind of scary.
It is, yeah, because it really is just I almost feel like it's just incremental shift in consciousness that is required to drop the veil, right? Because it just takes a moment, a eureka moment for anyone to say, wow, this is now I see it. And it's like then they in hindsight they reflect on their life and all the other impressions and moments where they know they saw it, but they just weren't able to put the pieces of the whole puzzle together. I mean, they knew subconsciously that they had been manipulated their entire lives, but there's just that one moment that where the veil is dropped. And it doesn't have to take a lot, right? I mean, maybe they just woke up, it could be one headline or one story, but this veil of, I mean, the veil, it comes back to this, the universe, we live in an age of universal deceit, but it doesn't take that much for people to shift their perspective, for them to see everything, where it's like that's when they realize that the emperor has no pants on, and it just again, it comes down to mind control, brainwashing, how all of history is the story of mind control and brainwashing by the world's governments and all more than an unorganized
When
religion.
that froze up,
I'm back.
What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
my screen was frozen. Maybe it's just me.
Oh,
No, mine is too.
we still have some audio here. Let me see what happened here. Darn it.
I hear the audio, but Albert's moving and I'm moving, but you're froze up in the screen.
Oh, I'm frozen. Okay, because I
Yeah.
can see myself moving, and you guys are frozen.
Okay, we're good. We're good. It's good.
Are you guys moving again?
Yeah, we're
Yes,
good.
sir.
Okay, yeah, because you're still frozen. You're still frozen on mine. Are you guys moving around on yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of see. Okay, Bob's is back on, and Albert's is kind of back on, but yeah. So I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, people have to. There has to come everybody has to have their own individual. I mean, people that are going to wake up, they have their own eureka moment where there's oftentimes one incident that just sets the ball rolling, and then they see in hindsight where they saw the breadcrumbs, they saw the bread trail, they can see it in hindsight, but it takes that one moment to put them to awaken them up, to wake them up. It's usually one incident where they say, okay, this is the moment where like, okay, now I'm awake, and then they see, then they see it.
The veil, yeah. The veil's removed, and now they have eyes to see.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for that day, though.
Yeah,
It's getting
I'm
Well,
just
then-
exhausted by it.
So on a negative note, I mean, I suppose it's negative, but like, so obviously we're at war
Mhm.
with the elites, but it also feels like we're getting ready to get into war with like other countries, right?
Mhm.
And so it seems like the more people wake up, the more pressure they are going to like I said, it's war, right? And it's winner take all. This is a fight to the death of us or them. And so they're coming at us with everything they got. And when, the COVID narrative wears out and nobody's, going to buy into that anymore, which it doesn't seem like they are, well, what's next? And so you got all this other stuff going on. So you do get to a point where when you think about the possibilities of the scenarios playing out, it doesn't matter if we're awake or not. We're getting screwed pretty hard.
Yeah, to your
It's
point,
all
Bob.
coming down on us, right?
Yeah. So we need people in the military and the police force to wake up. I mean, those are the people more. I mean, they need to have that crisis of conscience in the eureka moment where they wake up and they see that they have been manipulated their entire lives, and they will not continue taking orders from people that do not give.
They will be the tip of their spear.
What?
I said they will be the tip of their spear.
Yeah.
So the
They
more
have
of
to
them
wake
that are
up.
awake and the more of them that refuse,
Yeah.
the better off we'll be.
Yeah, because if they continue blindly enforcing these insane orders from their governments, well, then there is no hope. But they have to wake up, and they have to have the courage of their convictions once they wake up too, to say, no, enough is enough. I'm not going to do that. We're not going to carry out these insane orders from our governments. Yeah, and that has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I heard the latest with the, I think it was last week where the deadline, July 1st was the deadline for the military, National Guard anyway, maybe the entire military to be vaccinated or get whatever. It was the deadline, do it or else. And I don't know if anybody knew what the or else was. But what I read yesterday, and you guys might have already known this, but they decided that for the National Guard, we're not going to kick you out, but we're not going to pay you either.
Mhm.
It's like, what? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, they're like, so they're so sneaky and smart and slick like that. Like they realize probably they can't kick them out. So you can stay, but I don't know. It is bizarre to me, right? Like, so at the same time, these people they're in a dilemma because they're not going to stay without getting paid, but will they let them out on their own, honorable discharge? I don't know, but it's everything that's happened is bizarre, in that regard, because a majority of the military is vaccinated, and that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. No.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. At the end of it all, the way I see it is, especially back to how this conversation started, how, we said we are, in the last chapter of Revelation. If we, once again, we don't really know, but if we are, and like we said, Christ already came, the kingdom already came, it was erased from our history. Well, we win in the end, right? Like, so I walk with God, and it's a great time to be alive, and it's going to get crazy. And so either it ends like we think it does, according to the good book, or it doesn't. But I'm going to choose to believe that it does end like that. So I'm going to go forward with confidence. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I mean, like anything else that you do, if you believe it, you're going to pursue it in the right way. And then at the end, you get what you get, right? But it's the journey that matters, right? So if we're positive at this time and we're encouraging other people, however you want to see that happening, whether it's collective consciousness, like you would say, Luke, or something different, it's the only way to go through life right now. Because if you really think that, we're doomed as humanity, well, we might as well just blow our brains out, right? Like, I mean, what's the point in living like that? Which, so we're going to win. And even if we're going to win, like we've said, with everything new, like God says, well, what a great time to be alive, right? Definitely not boring, man. You know what? It's definitely not boring. And what I also see is people, because the cage has been shaken like it is, people are like, if everything was normal like it was 4 years ago, like nothing, people were just going through it, and nothing, like these hard times wake people up. And they're looking for answers, and hopefully they look for I truly believe a lot of people are coming to real faith in that God is in control, and he is who he says he is. I think that. I have to believe that. I really do. I see it.
Yeah.
Albert, what are your thoughts? We're wrapping up here. We got about 2.5 minutes.
I feel the same way. Really, I guess, I don't know. The question is, how do we continue? And really, finding people like we are, gathering as much information as we can, so that we're able to steer people in a good direction. Yeah, I think that's the key. But like I said, there's no better time. There's never been a better time to be distracted, and so I'm always now trying to be aware of that and stay disciplined.
Yeah, I mean, and for my end, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I've written my book. I've tried to share that with people. I'm always met with complete and utter silence from my book. You work on something for 20 years, an investigation into the nature of reality and the universe and everything that's happening in our world right now, and people they give you that awkward, uncomfortable head shake or a wink and a little slight smile, and then again they go back to putting their head into the sand. So none of this is new for me, and it's just a story of my life. So I know I'm taking my foot off the gas emotionally too. I'm removing myself from it and just kind of trying to take more of a stoics approach to this, because I know what's going to happen is going to happen. And when I see things, and often it comes back to the Bible, when I see things in the Bible where it's not so much faith, it's just I see, again, I come back to the metaphor of you judge a tree by its fruits. And when I look in the world, and when I take a lifelong, every time I assess my life, the world I live in, I see I've always seen a world of universal deception. And what obviously, again, it comes back to that word association of the devil and evils. the first word, the first association with that is deceit. Is the devil is the liar, you know, and evil is always based upon lies, and lies. It's just a Mount Everest of lies. So that's what I come back to. But guys, I see we're under a minute here, so just so we
Let
don't
me
get
say
cut off
something. You
here.
said you've taken the emotion and your more stoic approach. I
Yeah,
think we have to. I think we have
I
to.
do too.
I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. If we are at
So
war.
Bob, we're gonna get cut off here.
Okay, but
we're
yeah,
gonna-
you got to take the emotion out of it. You have
Yeah,
to.
yeah. So
Yeah.
guys, we're gonna get cut off here in probably in the next 10, 15 seconds because we're under a minute. So this was good, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes,
Yep.
sir. Have a good
See you
day.
guys. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah,
See you,
thank you.
Albert.
We'll see you.
All right, guys.